Hello, this is Donna Lee with Bioenergetic, holistic health coach and creator of the Higher Self-Care series. This audio today is specifically about empowering emotional release. And I congratulate you, if you're listening to this audio, you've either just taken the course or you've been in private sessions with me and you've learned to release. Emotional release is one of 4 segments in the Higher Self-Care series. The Higher Self-Care series is designed to help you connect with your inner guide. And this is just one segment, my favorite actually, emotional release. The other 3 segments deal with the physical, which is bioenergy beyond the basics. It deals with connecting with your source, Meditation 101, and what to do with those nagging thoughts that go around and around in your head through our course called NIP Cyclic Thinking. So again, congratulations for being here today, and I'd like to share with you, support you, and fortify what you've learned in emotional release by going a little more in depth and reminding you of some of the underlying emotions that occur that we're not always really conscious of. So let's get started. The first thing I'd like to share is, or remind you, is to let go of the story. Now, we deal with the story specifically in NIP Cyclic Thinking. However, in empowering emotional release, we let the story go. We let the thinking go, and we just go into the bodily, somatic sensations of emotion. We go right into the body, right into the sensation, right into the feeling, and right into the present moment. So remember to let go of the story and dive into the emotions when you are doing your emotional release on your own or with a partner. And the second thing I'd like to talk about is something that is pervasive. Almost every feeling that we feel on the lower frequency end of the spectrum, such as apathy, grief, fear, or anger, there is an accompanying underlying emotion called resistance. We can call that many things, but resistance. And resistance will come up, and you'll feel it coming up because you'll start feeling an emotion, and then all of a sudden you tighten up, your jaw tightens, you contract, and feel like you want to push it away or escape from it. This is resistance, and I'm going to remind you to get really friendly with resistance because it is pervasive and it will come up continually. So befriend resistance by simply allowing resistance fully as much as it's there. A good practice for resistance is to take 5 minutes, an hour, a half a day, a whole day if you'd like, and practice resisting as much as you do and becoming very conscious of it. Imagine you're on a walk and the pavement is hot and kind of hard and uncomfortable. Notice the sensation of resisting, the feeling of the pavement, that resistance. Notice also any sounds you might be resisting on this walk. Maybe there's construction in the background and it's kind of interfering and you're wanting to push it away or resist it. Notice the feeling of resistance, the tightening up there. And maybe in the distance there's ominous clouds on the horizon and you're thinking, oh no, it's not going to rain again, is it? And notice, you just tighten up sometimes your shoulders or your jaw and just feel and embrace and welcome the resistance as much as it's there. This is a beautiful way to release because you're being authentic and you're feeling what you're feeling. You're not trying to make it something it's not. The next part I'd like to share is the feeling of distraction. And this one sneaks up on us a little bit. Sometimes we are in the middle of an emotional release and all of a sudden, oh, I forgot to feed the dog, or did I pay the telephone bill, or who else should I add to the guest list? Little things like this are going to come up while you're releasing. This is actually another form of resistance, but I call it distraction. And there is a fine line. Sometimes your mind will wander into another thought or feeling because you've released, and sometimes it becomes distracted because you're resisting and you don't want to feel. So the fine line between distracting because you're wanting to push it away and resist what's surfacing, and wandering off a little bit because you've actually released the emotion is this. You'll simply feel more relaxed when you've actually released an emotion, and freer and lighter. When you're really feeling distraction, you'll feel kind of like you've escaped, like you're being taken away. And so there's just a fine line there, but it's always foolproof to simply go right into the distraction, no matter if it is a natural distraction or because you've released, or it's simply your way of resisting at that moment. So simply allow distraction. Allow yourself to feel as distracted as you do, and even more, and just a bit more, and it will simply dissolve, and then the next surfacing emotion will come up. The third pervasive that happens very common in releasing is wanting to fix it, wanting to change it. Now that sounds more like a thought than a feeling, but if you let go of the story and just feel the wanting, come into your body and just feel the wanting and wanting and wanting even more, and yearning and lusting as much as you do, you can get out of your head and actually release the feeling of wanting. The best way to do that is simply allow it, just like any other form of resistance, distraction, and wanting to fix it or change it. Allow yourself to want to fix it as much as you do until you can simply let it go. And sometimes by going into the feeling of wanting, you will naturally let it go. And then the next surfacing emotion will appear. The last thing I'd like to talk about is something that happens in the beginning when we first learn how to release, and it could happen continually as you practice your emotional release, is confusion, the feeling of confusion. And I may have discussed this with you in our sessions or in the course. Confusion is actually a good thing. I mean, there are no good or bad emotions. They're all simply frequencies. But when the feeling of confusion surfaces, allow the feeling of not knowing, of feeling confused, of feeling disoriented almost as much as you do. And this also may come as a physical feeling of shaking, trembling, twitching. That may be part of it as well. If any of that occurs, simply breathe into it, especially any feelings of confusion, shaking, not knowing. Our ego dislikes not knowing very much. And really it doesn't know anything, but it thinks it has to know. And it really can't know. Our higher self is what knows. So by simply allowing the confusion, you're allowing the synapses in your brain to reconnect to a higher, healthier place. They're disconnecting from the old and reconnecting to the new. And this is wonderful because you're becoming more authentic and connecting more with your higher self. Your intuition is stronger and you're freer to be who you are. So what we discussed were the underlying emotions that are pervasive: resistance, distraction, wanting, confusion, and the big one, letting go of the story.